Hello and welcome back to the Flightship. Sammy, your
What?
thoughts on Pikmin 4. Let's actually do this.
Okay, hold up. Let me grab a weapon really quick.
No
Aerospray
mooing
MG
this
should be
time.
good. Okay. So,
The long-awaited thoughts on Pikmin 4 from Sammy.
I want it to be more like Pikmin 2, to where Pikmin 3 had a very linear progression of you get to this next area, you beat a boss and go to the next area, basically.
Both 1 and 3 had a much opener. Had a
And
much
Pikmin
opener.
2 is very open. Like, it has, like, you open the 3 main areas pretty darn quickly, and then you can just explore and find stuff. And finding stuff was the goal. I have a thing against, like, time. I do not do well under time pressure. So,
Right.
I like Pikmin 2's more open approach of, open approach of just, you can do it at whatever speed you want, although there is, like, stipulations, like, after day 30, the beady longlegs appears in the perplexing pool, stuff like that. But, like, the areas get a little bit more dangerous over time, but not much. You can still take your time on, you can still take your time on things and just explore. Right. There's no set order. The caves are also a cool structure because, like, they're so cool just exploring a new cave that you just found, you know?
Right.
And, like, each cave's having, like, their own, like, different kind of theming. Like, the Bulblax Kingdom having, like, all sorts of different types of bulb orbs and, like, that kind of stuff. The perplexing, the submerged castle being...
The submerged castle just existing.
Just being the submerged castle.
Right. I do think a lot of that was present in, a lot of that was also present in 1, of course, but...
I have little to no experience with Pikmin... Baller just appeared out of thin air. Okay. I have little to no experience with Pikmin 1, so I'm generally referring to things on, is it like Pikmin 2 or is it like Pikmin 3?
Right, so you have only though, you don't have...
Played.
Yeah, because I think all the games are quite structured, somewhat, at least noticeably differently.
Differently, yeah.
So I'm keeping all 3 in consideration when I'm doing this. Something interesting though that something interesting that's been noted about 1 is, like, one of the things that was, I don't like how they made, like, such a big deal out of the bosses in 3.
Yeah.
I feel like they were, like, too big.
Also, brings into, like, a bit of, like, the linear kind of thing, where it's just a more...
And if you actually look over the series, like, the bosses become, like, bigger and bigger of, like, a deal throughout the series.
It's literally just, like, the beady Longlegs and the Emperor Bulblax, right?
Nah, you have some others. You have
Puffman, Cannon Beetles, and the
Puffman. Puffstool, and the Snagret was a boss back then.
Oh yeah, the Snagret existed.
There's a bunch of bosses, but the thing about it though is that, like, you just found them. They were just hanging out, and you could just go like.
But, like, Pikmin 2 also has that feel, like, where you get to the final floor, and like, you don't see anything. Like, there's just a big sand pit, or...
But you know that there's gotta be a boss there.
Or, like, a big, like, metal, like, arena, and it's like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
But you...
And stuff like the burrowing Snagret just popping out of the ground, or the,
Yeah, but I think...
Manette legs just menacingly, robotically getting up from its position, like, aiming its machine gun at you.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do think that it is the final sub-level, and at a later level, you do kind of know, yeah, this is gonna be a boss. But it is, I just think, because with 3 you don't. I mean, they have the cutscene. They added the cutscene, the cutscenes, like it feels more like much more like a traditional final boss. Or like, and each area has like a traditional boss,
Yeah.
and like the sub and the what used to be the boss are the sub bosses, and it kind of like I do think it's interesting.
So
The bosses
something like
became more
Pikmin 3's
distinct.
mid bosses, like the
Yeah,
Snagrets and
that's
Shaggy
yeah,
Longlegs,
that's a
stuff
lot
like
like
that, where you just
how
wander into an area and
yeah
you're there.
that's how one was, where like it could be anywhere because like there was nothing
Yeah.
like, and like you just like you were just exploring and you knew everyone was there, and then like bam, boss, like oh,
Yeah.
and they weren't even technically bosses. They were kind of like stronger things. They weren't. In Pikmin 1, you could argue there are no
Only
real
the baby
bosses.
Longlegs and the Emperor Ballblacks actually changed the music.
Yeah, you could argue that the rest of those are just like tougher enemies, and since there are varying difficulties, you could say they're just a varying toughness enemies. But and that was kind of interesting, and I do think that as much as and while Pikmin 2 doesn't like take it as far as 3 does, it does still delineate a little bit. I wonder. Well, we're talking about the caves. We have to delineate from like wishes and like what's likely a little bit in the courses.
I have no idea what's likely. That's
Oh yeah,
hard
that's the
to.
thing. Because they've changed so much. Like each game is quite. I'd say each game is quite structurally different, and that's part of the fun. Like people have been suggesting things like the explosives. Like there's so much different things that like could happen, and I do feel like any prediction we make is going to be less solid than any of the other predictions we make because it's Pikmin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wish though that they kept that feeling from the first game, because remember in the first game you just collect the you collect the 29 parts, and then you find and then you get to, and then that's when the final boss happens. And same, that's the other thing. In Pikmin 3, the collections have no tie to the progress
Yeah.
that you make, which is different from both other Pikmin games. Because Pikmin 1 had collection based on how many parts you had, and Pikmin 2, there were those specific parts, but again, most of the progression on 2 happened really early, or was because you got enough parts to get the final area. So yeah, that's another place where it seems like the more the game, like it became less. But I still think that in Pikmin 2, plus in Pikmin 2, the parts were like still, in Pikmin 2, the treasures were still the main objective.
Yeah. That's what I wanted
And
to be like.
that is the thing what hurts 3 the most, is that like, well, if you're getting 100%, yeah, you want to get all the fruit, but they freaking extra collectible and not like the main thing you're doing, the main purpose of being here. Instead, you're feeling like you're working towards trying to find Alomar and then go home, and that's not nearly as fun as just being like. Plus, it means you have to. It gives you that linear structure. It gives you that here's where you go. It points you in a direction of what you have to do, and although there's definitely exploration involved, it doesn't have that same feel of just go around and like find stuff.
Yeah.
When you find enough stuff, you've stuffed enough finds. And that is something I think is very important to the feel of Pikmin. That was lost. Ah, I've got a hair stuck in my. Anything else?
You know,
What about-
with
what
the
about
game like Pikmin 3, where you're like time pressured on everything,
What
it
was
was a good feature. I did really like the feature to be able to time travel back to previous days if you
that is good.
are
Yeah.
unsatisfactory. But in a game like, if they structure it more like Pikmin 2 without any time pressure, then that feature would be kind of useless.
But a lot of, I think what the fun is, because I would argue that although there may be a theoretical time pressure, like only at like the point where you lose the fruit does it ever become like a real issue.
I don't know. It always like how time pressure works. Just it's always like it just I don't know. It's hard to deal with for me.
Right. Because I think one of the things that I actually found the most, because actually like one of the things I found the most fun with, like one of the things I had the most fun with 3 was actually attempting to see to like the second run through I did where I like basically I tried to I wouldn't say speed. What? Yeah, I guess I kind of just tried to speed run it, and like that was interesting because then I played the optimization game, trying to get all the fruits in the right amount of time, and I feel like that's still a potential in the other games because there is a lot of optimization possible in Pikmin. So I do think that a time travel feature, even if there is no official time limit, would still be a useful feature to have.
Okay.
Because I would say that especially with a game like Pikmin where optimization is very, there's a lot of weight, like optimization is almost of a core mechanic somewhat, even if it's, even if you're taking it slow and don't have to. I would argue that that it does seem like the option to like have that would really help, even if no matter how it's structured. What do you think about typage?
What do you mean?
What types do you want to return? What types do you not think should return? And what types and what types do you want to like think up into existence?
Like the Pikmin types? Pikmin colors?
Yeah.
Or
just like
so you can't have a Pikmin game without red, blue, and yellow.
yes, that is.
Although balancing on yellows is a big thing.
Yeah.
Because in the original game, there's a kind of bit of a feeling of them being kind of pointless. Because all they can do is bomb rocks and throw higher.
Bomb rocks are necessary, and that throw higher thing is necessary. It's just their very specific use. They're not nearly as general use as they were.
In Pikmin 2, they completely changed that to electricity, and I think that made it a lot better. I think like having electricity as a lethal hazard with yellow Pikmin being immune to it would make the game harder, certainly, but I think it would be a nice change to make yellows seem.
They were very much necessary. But like now where they're necessary, but like electricity was.
They're necessary, but not like useful.
Yeah, and electricity was
electric gates just stun you.
And electricity is like a fairly. Electricity is like a fairly common threat too in the game, like the anode beetles and and the rest.
So
I find
reds, blues, and yellows in their Pikmin 2 format. Also, water is so prevalent that blues don't really need an extra ability to be useful.
Blues only need. We should probably keep.
Water is so prevalent of a hazard.
I actually really like how they handled how the Pikmin 3 Pikmins worked, like balancing wise.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was really interesting.
Reds are what you mainly want for battle and things. Yellows for safety, because there's no way they can be lethally harmed. You can...
Right. Well, crushing. Explosions.
Well, yeah, but that's like a small case, I don't know. But yellows are the safest to use because they because they aren't.
Yeah, so if you make,
like,
especially if you make
like
electricity a more prevalent, I don't know if you make it a more prevalent threat, as well as more lethal.
Oh, hi, Philip. We came back. Surprise.
No, I
So,
didn't.
and then
It's not like I didn't expect you to come back.
blues, obviously, whenever
did you
there's water,
win?
blues are a good idea.
Yeah, I actually really liked. I liked the way rocks
like-
were. Yeah.
Like with reds and yellows, you use them to open up areas to other Pikmin, but there's places that specifically only blues can go. You know?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
those
did
are
actually
useful to
think. I think that they did really well with like how they balanced out like the rocks and wing Pikmin in 3 because like the rocks like they did more damage but like they only when specific like only when thrown and like they didn't do a latch on. Yeah, so they don't do the cling, so it gave them like it gave them a damage boost, but it also meant you couldn't just rely on them because especially if you wanted to do the swing.
Wing Pikmin are super frustrating to use because they don't do the like initial throw damage, which like initial throw damage can kill a dwarf Bulborb instantly,
That is true.
whereas a Wing Pikmin will fly right up to the dwarf Bulborb, stop in midair, then fly to it and cling.
Yes,
And
because
probably get eaten before it kills the thing. You know?
yes, they do have so wings have very limited combat potential, but they're mostly like for efficiency basis. Like they're more for like carrying and stuff. And yeah, that's interesting. I think, especially since they don't actually have an immunity, but like they can help like carry things over stuff. So like I guess they have immunity against gravity, but which doesn't really kill, but can cause killing.
Pits.
Yeah, but there is like, but yeah, it does allow you to carry things over like water, and I think it's like, but they're very useful efficiency wise, but they're quite weak on the battlefield. Like they're very frustrating to use battle wise too.
So
that's almost a balancing of its own.
Say that I'd rather the rock Pikmin and wing Pikmin not return.
Oh.
Just how frustrating the wings are used just in general and stuff like that. I don't know. I never really found too much of a. In fact, I'd probably vote for the white Pikmin to return because they were like super fat. And I just think that's just better than, to me, that like the wing Pikmin are the same speed, they can just carry stuff over things.
Yeah.
But the white Pikmin just on the ground are, especially if you flower them, they're like they can carry stuff for super efficiently. So I'd vote for the white Pikmin at least to return.
Yeah, I do. If the white Pikmin return, I don't think that they should be. I don't.
Only available from like the candy pop.
Right.
You need to convert other Pikmin.
Yeah, but I don't think that if the white Pikmin return, I don't think that they should bring back the like completely buried treasures because like.
Yeah, no.
I know no one liked those. Those are just
those are just annoying. But
and
Pikmin with their immunity to poison and their which in fact poison does return in Pikmin 3 in one boss battle, the Behemoth Fozobat.
Oh right.
But there's no way you can access white Pikmin during that fight because they're only in the mission mode. So
right.
There's nothing's immune to it.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd definitely vote for the white Pikmin returning, having their poison immunity and the fact that they're fast.
I would argue
balancing them up with the reds and everything.
I would argue that with the poison immunity, I would argue that like I feel like they can't. I don't like how the candy pop system worked.
Okay.
Where they were only available through candy pops.
That could be revised. I mean.
But especially since because of that and how valuable they were, they kind of defeated the point of like what of their I do like their whole sacrificial poison thing, and if we're removing the whole digging thing,
Yeah.
that's very useful. So make them more common. But now,
Do you think
'cause, yeah.
it would be worth it to create a white Pikmin onion, or would that make them too overpowered?
I think that all the Pikmin in the new game should have an onion.
Okay.
I do think that we should find a way to balance the whites out, though.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just
not
don't think that
entirely sure
limiting
if I
their
really think
availability.
purples would be the best,
I'm not.
considering how sheer overpowered they are.
They are kind of just like powerful, and that's their thing. That's why I do think. Yeah, I would.
I think went better to the whole
Challenge
you
mode.
need to sacrifice other Pikmin in order to create purples, and they're like
Yes.
the most valuable asset. But
That works better there. I like. I still want rocks. I liked.
okay,
I think
Rocks
I
are
don't think.
better purples basically.
Yeah. I don't think. I mean, obviously, they're not literally better because they do less damage, but they're better balancing wise.
Yeah.
They're kind of like a better balanced version, and
they
I
also
do
have
think they're
their own
yeah
specific like
Oh,
thing, like
And-
the crystals.
yeah. Besides the fact that they're crystals, also they're immune to crushing, and
Then I was.
I didn't think they'd be able to pull off a Pikmin that was immune to crush. Well, okay, I started with rocks, but like people like have been suggesting that people be immune to explosions, and I'm like, how would you logically make a Pikmin that's immune to explosions? But then again, I would have thought the same thing about crushing. Like, how would you logically make a Pikmin immune to crushing? But like the way that their rock Pikmin is, like, it just seems like a natural thing. And it's like, oh, that just makes sense.
So say
Like they
we
made it
take,
intuitively just with their
We
design.
remove the purples because they're overpowered. We remove the wings because they're frustrating. I don't like them.
Right.
They're cute, but I just
Frustrating.
can't work with them. I just
Either
think
that-
the white's a better version of that.
They'd have to revise how they're controlled at the very
We
least.
also can't put too many different Pikmin types in, right? There's always been a max
Yeah.
of 5, and I think putting in too many more than that would kind
Well,
of
technically Baldwin makes 6, but yes. I do
Baldwin
think,
exists.
yeah, it's surprising that the Baldwin are an interesting idea. I don't really think they need to come back.
Yeah, no. Not
I don't
especially
think-
since you can't take them out of caves, so whenever you
Trying to boot me out of my spot there, Zoe.
whenever you get them, it's like I'm gonna use you here and then you're just gonna stay. Like it's like
Yeah,
you're not
I-
a permanent addition to
Yeah, they were a neat idea.
Nobody told me all about it.
I do think, yeah,
Probably the-
we might just keep it to whites and blacks,
What you like. That's what I was-
or whites and rocks. But I guess that would make white. I guess that would make white and black.
yeah. If we were gonna create any one new Pikmin type,
This is the most interesting aspect because I'm not quite certain how you do it. Because a lot of the fan stuff, like a lot of like what other people have come up with, I just don't think are that good of ideas. I don't know, I haven't seen like one where I like looked at it and I was like, that's a good idea. And even though you
cutting out
don't
a
like,
little bit.
like I haven't seen like
Breaking up.
I haven't seen like any of the ideas for
You're
for
breaking
alternate.
up, Philip. I'm going through a
Um,
tunnel in an elevator.
Meh. Dang it, really? Alright.
But everything else is more expensive.
I don't know.
So, well, they were like, it's due Sunday, which looks like a couple weeks.
We're losing.
And I was like,
Sort of.
Yeah.
well, then they were like, well, we don't have it, so can we make one? Can they be chocolate? Can they be chocolate ice cream? They're like, oh no, we don't have it.
Dang it.
Like, but something that Sunday was like, October. They never called out for Sundays. So,
Yeah.
All right, so
So like,
oh man, we went overtime
I
on that
think-
episode.
And I suppose I should have maybe
I mean, you're breaking up again, but
No, I
Yeah.
don't want to have to fix this again. All right, all right. Let's end this off here. Thanks for flying and all that, but and